The transport plane's engines were still ringing in my ears when I saw Melissa waiting by the chain-link fence at Fort Campbell. 9 months, 273 days of sand, heat, and counting down to this exact moment. Staff Sergeant Jack Elliott, finally home. She looked different somehow. Thinner in the face, but rounder everywhere else. That made sense. She'd had the baby 3 weeks ago. Our son, the kid we'd named Michael over grainy video calls from halfway around the world. Jack! She waved, but something was off about her smile. Too wide, too forced, like she was trying to sell me something I didn't want to buy. I shouldered my duffel bag and walked through the gate. When I hugged her, she felt tense, like a guitar string wound too tight. God, I missed you, she whispered into my neck, but her voice cracked on the words. Missed you too, babe. Where's the little guy? He's at home, sleeping. She pulled back and wouldn't quite meet my eyes. The drive's about 40 minutes. I thought we could talk first. Talk? I'd been dreaming about holding my son for 3 months. What was there to talk about that couldn't wait? But I followed her to the car. A new Honda Civic I didn't recognize. When did you get this? Last month. The truck was having problems, and with the baby... She trailed off, gripping the steering wheel like it might escape. The first 20 minutes of the drive were filled with nervous chatter. How was the flight? Fine. How was the deployment? Long. How was she feeling after the birth? Tired. Then she got quiet. Really quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you check if someone's still breathing. Melissa, you okay? I need to tell you something. Her knuckles were white on the wheel. About Michael. My stomach dropped. Is he sick? Is something wrong? No, he's healthy. Perfect, actually. 10 fingers, 10 toes, beautiful baby. She was talking too fast now, words tumbling over each other. He came early, remember? 8 months instead of 9. Premature babies sometimes look different than you expect. Smaller. Different coloring sometimes. Different coloring? She turned into our driveway, the little ranch house we'd bought 2 years ago. Yellow siding with white trim. Home. Except it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a trap. Let's just go inside, she said. You'll see. The house smelled like baby powder and something else. Fear, maybe. Melissa led me down the hallway to what used to be our spare room. Now it was a nursery, painted soft blue with cartoon elephants on the walls. I'd seen it during our video calls, but being here in person was different. There was a crib in the corner, white wood with a mobile of tiny airplanes hanging above it. He's sleeping, Melissa whispered, but I was already walking toward the crib. I looked down at the baby, my son, and the world stopped. The baby was black. Not mixed, not ambiguous. Black. Dark skin, dark hair, features that belonged to someone who definitely wasn't me, or Melissa, or anyone in either of our families going back 5 generations. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 30 seconds, staring at this beautiful, perfect baby who couldn't possibly be mine. Jack? Melissa's voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. I turned to look at her. She was crying, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. Explain, I said quietly. I can explain. Then explain. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's complicated. Complicated. I looked back at the baby, then at her. My wife has a black baby, and it's complicated. Please don't be angry. Angry? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Melissa, I'm not angry. I'm confused. See, I was deployed for 9 months. 9 months. And unless there's something about biology I missed in high school, this baby didn't come from me. She was sobbing now, ugly crying that shook her whole body. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jack. Who? What? Who's the father? She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Derek. Derek Washington. From work. Derek Washington. I knew that name. She'd mentioned him before, her coworker at the insurance office. Charming guy, she'd said. Funny. Former high school football star. How long? Jack, please. How long, Melissa? 6 months. It started about 3 months after you deployed. So while I was dodging IEDs and missing her like crazy, she was screwing Derek Washington. While I was video calling to talk about baby names and nursery colors, she was carrying another man's child. While I was counting days until I could come home to my family, she was building a family with someone else. Does he know? She nodded miserably. I told him when I found out I was pregnant. And? He doesn't want anything to do with us. Blocked my number, won't return my calls. Of course he didn't. Why would he? He got what he wanted and left her to deal with the consequences. left her to lie to her husband for 6 months about whose baby she was carrying. I looked down at the baby again. He was actually beautiful. Perfect little face, tiny hands curled into fists. None of this was his fault. "I thought maybe," Melissa started. "You thought what?" "I thought maybe his skin would be lighter. Sometimes babies change color as they get older. I thought maybe we could. You thought you could pass off another man's child as mine. I love you, Jack. I made a mistake, but I love you." I walked out of the nursery. Melissa followed, still crying, still talking, but I wasn't listening anymore. I sat down on the couch, our couch, where we'd watched movies and planned our future, and tried to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed. Text message from my buddy Rodriguez. "Welcome home, man. Can't wait to meet the little guy." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I turned off the phone. "Jack, please say something." I looked up at her. "I need to make some calls." "What kind of calls?" "The kind where I figure out where I'm sleeping tonight. Because it's not here." She fell to her knees beside the couch. "Please don't leave. We can work this out. People make mistakes. We can get counseling. We can—" "Melissa." My voice was calm, which surprised me. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Every day for 6 months, you made a choice. Every time we talked on the phone, every time I told you how excited I was to meet our son, every time I sent money for baby stuff, you made a choice to lie to me." I was scared. "Of what?" "Of losing you." I stood up. "Well, congratulations. You lost me anyway." I went to the bedroom and started packing. Melissa followed, begging, pleading, promising things would be different. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was thinking about Derek Washington, and about how this was going to play out, and about how sometimes the best revenge is just letting people live with the consequences of their choices. But sometimes it's not. The Motel 6 on Highway 41 wasn't exactly the homecoming I'd imagined, but the bed was clean and nobody was lying to me about paternity. I'd called my commanding officer, explained the situation in military terms. Marital situation has changed during deployment, need emergency housing assistance. Captain Morrison was a good guy. He didn't ask questions, just told me I could stay in the bachelor quarters on base for up to 30 days while I figured things out. But first, I needed to make another call. "Mom? Jack, oh honey, you're home. How's the baby? How's Melissa? We can't wait to meet our grandson." I closed my eyes. "Mom, I need you and Dad to come over to the house, tonight." "Of course. We've been dying to—" "Mom," I cut her off. "Just come over, and maybe call Melissa's parents too." There was a pause. "Jack, what's wrong?" "Just come over." An hour later, I was standing in my living room with both sets of parents, watching their faces as they processed what they were seeing. My dad, a man who'd worked construction for 30 years and wasn't easily surprised, stood in the nursery doorway with his mouth open. "Well, I'll be damned," he finally said. My mother was less diplomatic. "What the hell is this, Melissa?" Melissa's parents, Dr. Richard Hayes and his wife Patricia, who'd never quite thought I was good enough for their daughter, looked like they'd been slapped. "There has to be an explanation," Patricia said weakly. "There is," I said. "She was having an affair." The room exploded. My mother started yelling. Melissa's father started demanding details. Melissa collapsed into a chair and sobbed. The baby, disturbed by the noise, started crying. I picked him up. He was so small, so perfect. For just a moment, I let myself imagine what it would have been like if he'd actually been mine. "His name's Michael," I said to the room, "and he's not mine." My father put his hand on my shoulder. "Son, I'm sorry." Dr. Hayes cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should discuss this rationally. These things happen. Modern families come in all shapes and—" "Richard," my mother interrupted, "shut up." "Excuse me?" "Your daughter lied to my son for 9 months. While he was serving his country, she was screwing around. So shut up with your modern family bullshit." I almost smiled. Almost. The next few hours were a blur of accusations, tears, and uncomfortable truths. By the time everyone left, it was clear that Melissa was on her own. My parents were disgusted. Her parents were embarrassed. And Derek Washington was nowhere to be found. I stayed at the motel that night, staring at the ceiling and thinking about revenge. The next morning, I drove to Murphy's Gym on the south side of town. It was a dive, cracked mirrors, heavy bags held together with duct tape, the smell of sweat, and dreams deferred. But it was where I'd learned to box as a kid, and Mac Murphy was still there, 75 years old and tough as leather. Jack Elliott, he said when I walked in. Heard you were back. News travels fast. Small town. Also heard about your situation. I wasn't surprised. In a town of 12,000 people, everyone knew everyone's business within 24 hours. What do you want to do about it? Mac asked. What do you mean? I mean, you gonna let this destroy you, or you gonna do something about it? I looked around the gym. There were a few guys working out. Blue-collar types, mostly. Guys who understood that sometimes life hits you in the mouth and you have to decide whether to stay down or get back up. I'm gonna do something about it. Mac nodded. Good. What do you need? Information. It turns out Derek Washington wasn't hard to find. He worked at Premier Auto Sales on Main Street, selling used cars and apparently married women. According to Mac, who knew everything about everyone in town, Derek was 28, divorced, and had a reputation as a smooth talker. Lives in those new apartments behind the Walmart, Mac said. Drives a customized Charger, black with racing stripes. Can't miss it. I found the car that afternoon, parked outside O'Malley's bar. Through the window, I could see Derek holding court at a table full of admirers, telling some story that had everyone laughing. I walked in and ordered a beer from Rita, the bartender who'd been working there since the Carter administration. You're Jack Elliott, she said. It wasn't a question. That's right. Sorry about your situation. Thanks. She leaned closer. You want some advice? Sure. That boy's been bragging about your wife for months, talking about how easy it was, how she couldn't get enough, making you out to be some kind of fool. My grip tightened on the beer bottle. Is that right? Just thought you should know. I finished my beer and left, but not before taking a good look at Derek Washington. He was handsome, I'd give him that. Tall, athletic, with the kind of easy confidence that women seem to love. The kind of man who took what he wanted and didn't worry about the consequences. That was about to change. Over the next few days, I did reconnaissance. I learned Derek's schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. He was predictable, work until 6, gym until 7:30, bar until closing. Weekends were for golf and whatever woman he was currently charming. I also started making calls. Lawyers, mostly. Turns out when your wife has another man's baby, divorce proceedings move pretty quickly, especially when you have a military lawyer who specializes in these kinds of cases. The good news, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Martinez told me over the phone, is that you have no financial obligation to the child. DNA test will confirm that. The bad news is that you'll probably lose the house. I don't care about the house. What do you care about, Sergeant Elliott? I thought about that for a moment. Justice. Justice is a luxury, Sergeant. Revenge is expensive. Make sure you know the difference. But I was pretty sure I knew exactly what I wanted. And it wasn't justice. Derek Washington's pride and joy was that Charger. Midnight black with silver racing stripes, custom exhaust, chrome wheels that probably cost more than most people made in a month. He washed it every Saturday morning in the parking lot behind his apartment, taking his time, making sure every inch was perfect. I watched him from across the street, sipping coffee from a gas station cup and thinking about how much a man's car could mean to him. For some guys, it's an extension of their personality, their manhood, their identity. For Derek, it was all three. I waited until he went inside, then walked over and took a closer look. The paint job was flawless. The interior was pristine leather. The sound system probably cost more than my entire deployment bonus. I pulled out my keys. The sound of metal on paint is distinctive, a long, scraping noise that cuts through silence like a scream. I started at the front bumper and worked my way back, carving a deep groove along the driver's side. Then I did the passenger side, then the hood. When I was finished, the word cheater was etched into the paint in letters 3 inches high. I was back across the street when Derek came out to move his car. The sound he made when he saw what I'd done wasn't quite human. It was the sound of a man watching his dreams die. He looked around frantically, but I was just another guy drinking coffee outside a gas station. Nobody suspicious, nobody threatening. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. Police probably, insurance, maybe his mother. I finished my coffee and drove away. 2 days later, I was at O'Malley's when Derek walked in. He looked like hell. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, the kind of desperate anger that comes from having something precious destroyed. He spotted me at the bar and walked over. You bastard! I turned around slowly. I'm sorry. Do we know each other? You know damn well who I am. Derek Washington, right? You work at the car lot. His hands were clenched into fists. You keyed my car. Did I? That's a serious accusation. You have any proof? He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to decide whether to throw a punch. I almost hoped he would. I'd been looking forward to a good fight. But Derek was smarter than that. Or maybe just more of a coward. "This isn't over," he said. "Actually, it is. See, you had your fun with my wife. Knocked her up, then ran away when things got complicated. Now you get to live with the consequences. She came on to me. I'm sure she did, but you didn't have to say yes. You don't understand. She was lonely, and you were gone, and I held up a hand. Stop. I don't want to hear your justification. I don't want to hear about how it just happened, or how you didn't mean for it to go so far, or how sorry you are. I want you to understand something very clearly." I stood up and moved closer to him. Derek was bigger than me, but I'd spent 9 months in a combat zone. He'd spent 9 months selling cars and screwing married women. "You destroyed my marriage," I said quietly. "You destroyed my family. You made me a joke in this town, so now I'm going to destroy you. I can't what? Key your car? Already did that. Ruin your reputation, working on it, make your life miserable? Derek, we're just getting started." He backed away from me. "I'll call the police." "And tell them what? That you think I might have damaged your car? That you're scared of the husband of the woman you were screwing? Go ahead. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic." Derek looked around the bar. Everyone was watching now, listening to every word. In a small town, this was better than cable TV. "You're crazy," he said. "Maybe, but I'm also patient and creative, and I have a lot of time on my hands now that I don't have a family to come home to." He left without another word. Rita refilled my beer without being asked. "That was something," she said. "That was nothing. Wait until you see what comes next." But I was already thinking beyond Derek. He was just the symptom. The real disease was deeper, more complicated. It involved people I'd trusted, people I'd considered friends, people who were about to learn what betrayal really felt like. The next morning, I drove to Melissa's office. Premier Insurance was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a Chinese restaurant, the kind of place where dreams of middle-class respectability went to die. I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in my truck and watched. At 11:30, Melissa came out for lunch. She looked tired, defeated. Motherhood and guilt were wearing on her. She didn't see me, but I saw her, and more importantly, I saw her coworkers watching her through the window, whispering, judging. The office gossip mill was already grinding, and Melissa was the main ingredient. That gave me an idea. I drove home, to the house that was still technically half mine, and let myself in. Melissa wasn't there. She was probably at work, trying to pretend her life wasn't falling apart. Her laptop was on the kitchen table, still logged into her email account. I'd always thought it was stupid how she never logged out of anything, but now I was grateful for her carelessness. It took me about an hour to find what I was looking for. Months of emails between Melissa and her coworkers, full of gossip, complaints, and personal information that was definitely not supposed to be shared outside the office. But the real goldmine was her correspondence with Derek, explicit messages, photos I really didn't want to see, and detailed complaints about me, her marriage, and her plans for the future. Plans that definitely didn't include me coming home from deployment. I forwarded the most damaging emails to myself, then deleted the evidence from her sent folder. Then I composed a message to the entire office staff from her account. "Hi, everyone," I typed. I wanted to be honest about my personal situation since I know there's been some talk around the office. Yes, I had an affair while my husband was deployed. Yes, the baby is not his. Derek Washington is the father, but he wants nothing to do with us. I know this reflects poorly on my judgment and character, and I understand if that affects how you view me professionally. I just wanted you to hear it from me first. Melissa. I scheduled the email to send at 2 p.m., right after lunch when everyone would be back at their desks. Then I went home to wait. The call came at 2:47 p.m. "Jack, what did you do?" Melissa's voice was shaking. "I'm sorry. What are you talking about?" "The email. The email that went out to everyone in the office." "What email?" "Don't play dumb with me. I know it was you." I was sitting in the parking lot of a McDonald's, watching kids play on the playground and eating a Big Mac. Normal life continuing around me while my world burned down. "Melissa, I have no idea what you're talking about. What email?" Someone sent an email to the entire office from my account. About the affair, about Derek, about everything. "Wow, that's terrible. Any idea who might have done that?" "It was you." "How could it be me? I don't have access to your email." There was a long pause. "You were in the house." "It's my house too, at least until the divorce is final." "Jack, please, they're talking about firing me." "Are they? That seems extreme." "Please, I'll do anything. Just tell them it wasn't real. Tell them someone hacked my account." I took another bite of my burger. I can't tell them something that isn't true, Melissa. You bastard. Actually, I'm not. But your son might be, technically speaking. She hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Sandra Hughes, Melissa's best friend since high school. They'd been inseparable for 20 years, shopping together, vacationing together, sharing every secret and drama. Jack, we need to talk. Hi, Sandra. How are you? Cut the crap. What you did to Melissa was cruel. What I did? Sandra, what exactly do you think I did? The email, the humiliation, making her look like a fool in front of her coworkers. I pulled into a parking space outside a drugstore. Sandra, let me ask you something. Did you know? Know what? About the affair, about Derek, about the baby. Silence. Sandra. It's complicated. That seems to be everyone's favorite word lately. Did you know or not? Melissa was confused. She was lonely. You were gone for so long, and you knew. Jack, please understand. You knew, and you didn't tell me. You let me send care packages. You let me call and talk about how excited I was to meet my son. You let me plan a future with a woman who was carrying another man's child. It wasn't my place to. It wasn't your place to be a decent human being. It wasn't your place to be loyal to someone who considered you family. Melissa is my best friend. And what was I, Sandra? What was I to you? Another pause. You were Melissa's husband. Right. I was just an accessory, a supporting character in Melissa's story. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. And now you're calling to make me feel bad about the consequences of actions I didn't take. Jack, please. She's falling apart. She might lose her job. She's got a baby to think about. She should have thought about that before she decided to screw Derek Washington. People make mistakes. No, Sandra. People make choices. Every day, for 6 months, Melissa chose to lie to me. Every day, you chose to help her. Now you get to live with those choices. I hung up and sat in the parking lot for a while, thinking about friendship and loyalty, and how easily people abandon both when it becomes inconvenient. My phone buzzed with a text message from Tom Bradley, my best friend since high school. We'd played football together, double-dated, been each other's best man. If anyone should have had my back, it was Tom. Heard about the situation. Sorry, man. Want to grab a beer? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, Did you know? The response came quickly. Know what? About Melissa and Derek. This time the pause was longer. Finally, can we talk in person? I met Tom at Murphy's gym an hour later. He was waiting in the parking lot, looking uncomfortable in his business suit and tie. Tom worked at the bank now, had a mortgage and a minivan, and all the trappings of suburban respectability. Jack, I'm sorry about what happened. Answer the question, Tom. Did you know? He looked at his shoes. I heard rumors. What kind of rumors? People talking, saying they'd seen Melissa and Derek together. At restaurants, at the movies, places where married women don't usually go with men who aren't their husbands. And you didn't think to mention this to me? You were deployed. What was I supposed to do? Call you up and destroy your marriage based on gossip? You were supposed to be my friend. I am your friend. No, Tom. Friends tell each other the truth. Friends have each other's backs. Friends don't let their best friend come home to a surprise that could have been avoided. Jack, come on. You know it's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You chose to protect Melissa's secret instead of protecting our friendship. You chose to let me be humiliated instead of giving me a chance to deal with the situation on my own terms. Tom ran his hand through his hair. What would you have done if I'd told you? I don't know. Maybe I would have come home early. Maybe I would have confronted her before the baby was born. Maybe I would have had some dignity left. And maybe you would have done something stupid and ended up in jail. So you made the decision for me. I made the decision I thought was best for everyone. Everyone except me. We stared at each other for a moment, 20 years of friendship hanging in the balance. Jack, I'm sorry. I really am. But what's done is done. We can't change what happened. We can only move forward. You're right, I said. What's done is done, including our friendship. I turned to walk away. Jack, wait. Don't do this. Don't throw away 20 years over a mistake. I stopped and looked back at him. Tom, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, the same choice everyone else made. You chose Melissa over me. You chose keeping the peace over telling the truth. You chose to be a coward. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I spent 9 months missing my family while my wife was building a new one? Is it fair that everyone in town knew I was being played except me? Is it fair that my best friend let me walk into the biggest humiliation of my life without a warning? Tom didn't have an answer for that. I'm not throwing away 20 years, I said. You already did that when you decided my feelings were less important than everyone else's comfort. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving Tom standing in the parking lot with his regrets. But I wasn't done, not even close. The plan came to me while I was sitting in my motel room, eating Chinese takeout and watching the local news. The anchor was talking about the upcoming Founders' Day festival, the biggest event of the year in our little town. 3 days of food vendors, carnival rides, and community spirit. The kind of event where everyone shows up, including people who've been avoiding each other. Perfect. I spent the next week preparing. First, I needed evidence. Real evidence, not just gossip and suspicion. I drove to Derek's apartment complex and waited. Patience is something the military teaches you well. On Thursday night, Derek came home with a woman. Not Melissa, someone new. A blonde in a tight dress who looked like she'd never met a bad decision she didn't like. I followed them to dinner, then to a bar, then back to Derek's place. I took pictures of everything. Derek Washington, the man who'd destroyed my marriage and then abandoned the woman he'd impregnated, was already moving on to his next conquest. Friday morning, I drove to Melissa's office. She was in the parking lot arguing with someone on her phone, probably her mother, based on the tone and body language. I don't care what Dad thinks, she was saying. I can't just disappear. I have a job. I have responsibilities. She saw me watching and ended the call quickly. What do you want, Jack? To talk. We're getting divorced. Our lawyers can handle the talking. This isn't about the divorce. She looked tired. More than tired. Exhausted. The kind of bone-deep weariness that comes from having your entire life collapse in slow motion. What then? It's about Derek. Her face went pale. What about him? I showed her the photos on my phone. Derek with his new girlfriend, laughing and kissing and having the time of his life while Melissa struggled to raise his child alone. He's moved on, I said. I can see that. Has he called you? Offered to help with the baby? Sent money? She shook her head. But he's got time for dinner and drinks with strangers. Jack, why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand something. Derek Washington used you. He took what he wanted, and when it got complicated, he ran. He's not some romantic hero who swept you off your feet. He's a coward who destroyed 2 families and walked away without looking back. Tears were running down her cheeks. I know that. Do you? Because you're still protecting him. You're still keeping his secrets. You're still letting him get away with it. What do you want me to do? I want you to stop being a victim and start being angry. I am angry. At me. You're angry at me for exposing the truth. You should be angry at him for creating the situation in the first place. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What's your point, Jack? My point is that Derek Washington thinks he won. He thinks he got away with it. He thinks he can destroy people's lives without consequences. So let's prove him wrong. Melissa stared at me for a long moment. What are you talking about? Founders' Day is tomorrow. The whole town will be there, including Derek. Jack, no. Whatever you're thinking, no. I'm thinking about justice, Melissa. I'm thinking about consequences. I'm thinking about making sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man Derek Washington really is. You'll ruin him. He ruined us first. She was quiet for a while, looking at the photos on my phone. Derek laughing with another woman while their son slept in a crib 20 miles away. What would you need from me? She asked finally. Text messages, emails, anything that shows what really happened. Anything that proves he knew about the baby and chose to abandon you both. I deleted most of it. Nothing's ever really deleted, Melissa. Not if you know where to look. She was wavering. I could see it in her eyes. The anger she'd been suppressing, the hurt she'd been swallowing, the desire for revenge she'd been denying. He told me he loved me, she said quietly. I'm sure he did, right up until it became inconvenient. He said he wanted to leave his girlfriend for me. What girlfriend? He was dating someone when we started the affair, some girl named Jennifer. He said he was going to break up with her, but then you got pregnant, and suddenly he wasn't so interested in leaving anyone for you. She nodded. Melissa, Derek Washington is a predator. He finds lonely, vulnerable women and tells them exactly what they want to hear. Then he takes what he wants and moves on. You weren't the first, and you won't be the last. Unless we make sure everyone knows what he really is. She looked at me for a long time. If I help you, what happens to us? Nothing changes. We're still getting divorced. We're still done. but maybe we can make sure Derek doesn't get away with destroying our lives." "Okay," she said finally. "Okay. What do you need me to do?" Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. Perfect weather for Founders' Day. I got to the festival early and found a good spot near the main stage, where the mayor would be giving his annual speech and various local dignitaries would be recognized. Melissa met me at 10 a.m. with a flash drive full of recovered text messages, emails, and photos. Derek's promises of love, his lies about leaving his girlfriend, his panic when Melissa told him about the pregnancy, and his cruel dismissal when she begged him to be part of their child's life. "This is everything," she said. "Everything I could recover." "Thank you." "Jack, I really am sorry. About all of it. I know you are. Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 5 years. This woman who'd carried another man's child while I was serving my country. This woman who'd let me believe in a future that was never real. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday, but not today." She nodded and walked away. At noon, the festival was in full swing. Families everywhere. Kids running around with cotton candy. Teenagers flirting by the Ferris wheel. Normal life, normal people, normal problems. I saw Derek near the beer tent, holding court with a group of guys from the car lot. He was telling some story, gesturing wildly, making everyone laugh. The life of the party, as always. I also saw Tom Bradley with his family, Sandra Hughes with her kids, and most of Melissa's co-workers from the insurance office. All the people who'd known or suspected or chosen to stay silent. At 1 p.m., Mayor Peterson took the stage to begin the afternoon program. Recognition of local veterans, announcement of this year's scholarship winners, the usual small-town ceremony. I waited until he was finished with the official business, then I walked up to the stage. "Excuse me, Mayor Peterson, could I borrow the microphone for a moment?" He looked confused, but handed it over. "Of course, Sergeant Elliott, welcome home." I looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of people, including everyone who'd played a role in the destruction of my marriage. "Thank you, Mayor Peterson, and thank you all for this warm welcome home. It's good to be back in a community where people look out for each other, where neighbors are honest with each other, where friends tell each other the truth." I paused and let that sink in. Of course, that's not always the case, is it? Sometimes people keep secrets. Sometimes they choose loyalty to the wrong person. Sometimes they let their friends walk into situations that could have been avoided. The crowd was getting uncomfortable. People were looking around, whispering, trying to figure out where this was going. "For example," I continued, "while I was deployed, serving my country and missing my family, my wife was having an affair with Derek Washington." Gasps from the crowd. I saw Derek near the beer tent go white. Now, that's between me and my wife, and we're handling it. But what bothers me is how many people knew about it and said nothing. How many people chose to protect the guilty parties instead of warning the innocent victim. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the festival's sound system, a trick I'd learned from the Army's Public Affairs Office. "I thought you might like to hear some of Derek's own words about the situation." Derek's voice boomed across the festival grounds, reading text messages he'd sent to Melissa. "Your husband's an idiot if he thinks that baby is his. You should have seen his face in those deployment videos when you talked about our son." Pathetic. The crowd was dead silent now. Derek was pushing through people, trying to get to the stage, but my Army buddies, Rodriguez, Martinez, and Jackson, had positioned themselves to block his path. "Here's another good one," I said, playing another message. "I'm not ready to be a father. This is your problem now. Don't contact me again." By now, people were pulling out their phones, recording everything. This would be on social media within minutes, shared across the entire county by the end of the day. "And here's my personal favorite," I said, playing the final message. "Tell your husband I said thanks for the free babysitting. Maybe he'll raise my kid better than he managed his marriage." Derek broke free from the crowd and rushed the stage. "You bastard!" I stepped back and let him come. When he swung at me, I ducked and hit him with an uppercut that dropped him like a bag of cement. The crowd cheered. "Derek Washington, everyone," I said into the microphone. "Father of the Year." Derek struggled to his feet, blood running from his nose. "This is assault. I'm calling the police." "Please do," I said. "I'm sure they'd love to hear those recordings, too." He looked around at the crowd, hundreds of people staring at him with disgust and contempt. His reputation was destroyed, his secrets exposed, his cowardice on full display. He ran. I handed the microphone back to Mayor Peterson. "Sorry for the interruption. Please, everyone, enjoy the festival." As I walked away from the stage, people started applauding. Not everyone. Some were too shocked, others too uncomfortable with the public humiliation they'd just witnessed. But enough. Tom Bradley was waiting for me at the bottom of the stage steps. Jack, that was what, Tom? Cruel? Unfair? Inappropriate? It was justice. I looked at him for a moment. Yeah, it was. Does this mean we can be friends again? I don't know, Tom. Ask me in a year. I walked away from the festival, leaving behind the wreckage of Derek Washington's reputation and the complicated remains of relationships that would never be the same. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one more score to settle. 3 days after the festival, I was packing up my motel room when Sandra Hughes called. Jack, we need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say, Sandra. No, we haven't. There's something you don't know. Something about the affair. I stopped packing. What about it? Can we meet? In person? An hour later, I was sitting across from Sandra at a coffee shop on the edge of town. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking as she stirred sugar into her latte. You destroyed him, she said. Derek, he destroyed himself. I just made sure everyone knew about it. His girlfriend left him. He got fired from the car lot. He's leaving town. Good. Jack, you don't understand. This is all my fault. I leaned back in my chair. How is it your fault, Sandra? Because I'm the one who introduced them. I'm the one who told Melissa that Derek was interested in her. I'm the one who encouraged her to go out with him. Why would you do that? She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks just like Melissa's had that first night. Because I was angry at you. Angry at me? For what? For firing me. I stared at her. Sandra, I never fired you. I don't even know where you work. Worked, past tense. I worked at Henderson Construction. You got me fired. Henderson Construction. I'd done some electrical work for them 2 years ago before my deployment. There had been a problem with missing materials, tools disappearing from job sites, petty cash coming up short. You were stealing, I said. It wasn't stealing. It was borrowing. I was going through a divorce. Money was tight. I was going to pay it all back. But you didn't pay it back. And when Jim Henderson asked me about it, I told him the truth. You ruined my life. You ruined your own life. I just refused to lie for you. I lost my job. I lost my house. I had to move in with my mother. And so you decided to destroy my marriage. She nodded miserably. I thought if I could break you and Melissa up, you'd know what it felt like to lose everything. I sat there for a moment, processing this new information. The affair hadn't been a spontaneous mistake or a moment of weakness. It had been orchestrated, planned, executed as revenge for a completely unrelated incident. You manipulated Melissa into cheating on me because I wouldn't cover up your embezzlement. I didn't think she'd get pregnant. But when she did, you encouraged her to lie about it. I thought maybe the baby would look more like you. Mixed babies sometimes. Sandra, the baby isn't mixed. He's black. Completely, obviously, unmistakably black. I know that now. You let me come home from deployment to the biggest humiliation of my life because you were mad about losing a job you deserved to lose. Jack, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I looked at this woman I'd known for years, this woman who'd been at my wedding, who'd sent care packages during my deployment, who'd smiled to my face while plotting my destruction. Sandra, you didn't just destroy my marriage. You destroyed Melissa's life, too. You destroyed Derek's life. You destroyed an innocent baby's chance at having a stable family, all because you couldn't take responsibility for your own actions. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything. What can I do? How can I make this right? I thought about that for a moment. You can tell Melissa the truth. You can tell her that the affair wasn't her fault, that she was manipulated into it. You can tell her that Derek was just a weapon you used against me. And then what? Then you can leave town, just like Derek, just like everyone else who played a role in this mess. Jack, please, I've lost everything already. My job, my friends, my reputation. Isn't that enough? Sandra, you haven't lost anything that you didn't choose to lose. Every decision you made, from stealing from Henderson Construction to manipulating Melissa into an affair, was your choice. Now you get to live with the consequences. I stood up to leave. Jack, wait. What about forgiveness? What about second chances? What about them? Don't you believe in redemption? I looked down at her. This broken, desperate woman who'd orchestrated the destruction of multiple lives because she couldn't handle the consequences of her own actions. Sandra, I believe in justice. I believe in consequences. I believe that when you hurt people, you should have to face the results of your choices. Redemption is something you earn, not something you're owed. So that's it? You're just going to walk away? That's exactly what I'm going to do. The same thing Derek did when Melissa got pregnant. The same thing you did when your scheme succeeded. I'm walking away and leaving you to deal with the mess you created. I left her sitting in the coffee shop and drove to Melissa's house one last time. She was in the nursery, feeding the baby. Michael. He really was beautiful, despite everything. Sandra told me, I said. Melissa looked up. Told you what? About how the affair started. About how she manipulated you into it. Jack, I made my own choices. I can't blame Sandra for... You can blame her for some of it. She used you, Melissa. She used Derek, too. You were both weapons in her revenge against me. Revenge for what? I told her about the Henderson construction incident, about Sandra's embezzlement, about how my honesty had cost Sandra her job and led to this elaborate scheme of payback. She planned this, Melissa said quietly. She planned it, encouraged it, and then helped you cover it up. You made the choice to cheat, but you were manipulated into making it. Melissa was quiet for a long time, processing this new information. Does it change anything? She asked finally. Between us? No. We're still getting divorced. We're still done. But maybe it helps you understand that you're not entirely to blame for what happened. And Derek? Derek's gone. Left town yesterday, according to Sandra. Probably for the best. What about you? What happens to you now? I looked around the nursery one last time, at the crib I'd helped pick out, the mobile I'd hung, the dreams I'd had for a family that was never really mine. I start over, I said. Somewhere else with people who don't know this story. Somewhere I can be Jack Elliott again instead of that guy whose wife had the black baby. I'm sorry, Jack, for all of it. I know you are. Take care of yourself, Melissa. Take care of Michael. He deserves better than the situation he was born into. I walked out of the house for the last time and got in my truck. In the rearview mirror, I could see Melissa standing in the doorway, holding her son, watching me drive away. 2 weeks later, I was in Colorado, working construction in a town where nobody knew my name or my story. The mountains were beautiful, the air was clean, and the people minded their own business. I rented a small apartment, bought some furniture, and started building a new life. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was honest. It was mine. And nobody was lying to me about whose baby was whose. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about revenge and justice and whether I'd gone too far. But then I remembered Derek's text messages, Sandra's manipulation, and all the people who'd chosen to protect the guilty instead of warning the innocent. I'd given them all exactly what they deserved. Nothing more, nothing less. And that was enough.